Welcome to the Insurance Playbook Podcast, the show that pulls back the curtain on the insurance industry and gives you the stories, strategies, and insider tips you need to win. Sponsored by Spark AI Partners. Now today, we're joined by Aubrey Fitzloff, a woman who once swore she'd never work in insurance, but ended up building a thriving Medicare agency and becoming a respected leader in South Carolina. From starting out as an admin assistant to now mentoring other agents, Aubrey's journey is all about resilience, relationships, and recognizing opportunity when it comes your way. She also brings a unique perspective as a black belt in martial arts, using discipline and confidence to thrive in a male-dominated industry. In this episode, Aubrey shares how new agents can survive those tough first 5 years, the power of mentorship and networking, and the mindset every agent needs to turn no into opportunity. Let's dive in. Welcome, Aubrey. We're super glad to have you on the show here. And I'm thrilled about your background and really just curious about why insurance in general, right? So you started as an admin assistant in insurance. Why did you choose insurance, or did it choose you?
Well, I can't really say that I chose insurance. I would say God chose it for me. I put myself through school working in hotels. I have a French degree. I thought I was going to go work in cruise lines because they always appreciate people who speak other languages. And after I had graduated and started realizing that, at least in the particular market I was in hotels, I probably wasn't going to move up too much further, at least not for several years, just because there wasn't opportunity to go upward. I started realizing that
Mhm.
I didn't exactly love working third shift on Christmas and having to be available every holiday. And that's part of management in the hospitality world. So I started working with a local employment agency. And what I knew is I really liked the people aspect of being in hospitality. And I had a dozen or so years of hospitality service and administrative service because I was more in the office environment of the hotel. And the employment agency, it's funny because the one industry I told them I was not willing to work in was insurance, because at
How it goes.
24, almost 25 years old, in all my ignorant wisdom, I really thought that working in insurance would mean I'd be in a windowless cubicle denying health insurance claims all day. And that was, at the time, and still is, my personal idea of hell. So I said insurance was off limits. My account rep, who had a lot more experience than I did, recognized my people skills, and she actually had to convince me to go take the interview with the original owners of the agency. And I just interviewed for an administrative assistant position. And was fortunate enough that despite my bad attitude about the industry, they recognized my potential and hired me on. And about 6 months later, they said, "Hey, look, we love you. We're going to keep you. But if you want to make more
Uh-huh.
money, we're going to need you to get your license and at least do some sales. You can still keep doing the administrative work, but we need you to do some sales." And so
Yep.
essentially, it wasn't my idea at all, but it turns out that I am pretty good with people, and I am pretty good at remembering the details of insurance and helping creatively solve problems. So it turned out to be a superpower, even though at 20 something years old, I was too ignorant to recognize.
Feel like that's how it goes. We make our plan and then God makes his plan. And as long as we're
Yeah.
not too stubborn to follow along, it
Mhm.
seems like it's worked really well for you. I find that a lot of people have that impression of insurance. It's that miserable thing where it's just a dry, boring, but I as well, I'm a people person and I love it. So I
Mhm.
think I think that's amazing. One of the things that I think most of our listeners would love to hear is kind of your story. Most of the agency owners that I see started out with money, or maybe they started out as an agent even and then worked to an agency owner. You came in as an admin assistant, not interested in insurance at all. And then now you're leading a team of insurance agents. You just bought a book of business as well. You're very well known in South Carolina. Take me through the mindset that helped you go from the admin assistant to an agency owner and kind of what that took.
Well, so as I mentioned, they asked me to get licensed. And at that time, it
Hmm.
was a little bit sales, but mostly it was so that I could handle more of the administrative side of things, being able to call and check on people's renewals and billing status and communicate with our clients. And then
Hmm.
part of what transitioned things or catapulted me more into the sales was, again, it wasn't really on me. The two owners of the agency were working on another company together. And unfortunately, things came to an impasse in that company and it affected their professional relationship within the agency, to the point that they decided to dissolve their partnership. And so there were four of us in the company at the time, and the other agent went with the owner who wound up deciding to leave. And I stayed with the original owner. And I am very, very lucky that he was a very good mentor, but he was a few years away from retirement. And so it was really in his mind, he needed somebody that he could train into an agency owner. He didn't want to just sell his block of business. He had a lot of friends and people that he went to church with and clients that had become friends through the years. And so he didn't want to just sell to a national outfit and move on into retirement. He really wanted there to be somebody who was still here locally that they could call. So he did a really, really good job. I don't get to take credit for this. He did a really good job of making sure that I was involved. When they would call and they would have questions about their policies, he'd pick up the phone, he would chit chat with them a few minutes, and then he'd say, well, I'm going to have Aubrey take care of that for you. So that 3 years later, when he was ready to retire and he and I had worked a buyout solution, those people knew who I was and they
Hmm.
knew that I was capable of handling the questions that they had because he had been handing them off to me. But alongside of that, the agency originally specialized in long-term care insurance. That's what the original owners started out in. And so when they brought me in, they handed me all of the Medicare business and all of the individual health. And they were like, here, we don't want to do this. This is you. And so
Wow.
we became a bit known amongst long-term care and life insurance agents as we had a Medicare specialist on staff. And so they would bring me their Medicare business because they didn't want to fool with it. They didn't want to learn it. And this was just as like Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans were being introduced.
Yep.
And they knew that we would pay them a split commission if they brought it. And they knew that we wouldn't compete with them on the products that they did sell. And so that was a great way for me to start building my block of business without having to buy leads or go cold call or some of the really scary parts of getting started in our industry. And also build good working professional relationships with peers in my field, in my area, so that when this owner did retire, I had other people I could call for mentorship. And I think that was a very large part of me being able to get to where I am today is I had a lot of guys, and I'll say it like that, guys that they loved having a younger lady that they could mentor and take to lunch and say, here's a tricky scenario. Let's teach you how to do this. Whereas that probably would have taken me decades to figure out some of that on my own if I hadn't had those good relationships.
Yeah. So I don't think anything is luck. The more and more I go through life, that is concrete and solidified in my mind that you didn't luck out. I believe that luck is where opportunity meets
Mhm.
preparation. And you were obviously prepared, and it's part of your character and why those people landed you the opportunity and you built those relationships to be where you're at. So don't take anything away from yourself. I think that's amazing.
You're absolutely right. I say luckily, I will say I was fortunate to have good opportunities that were available to me that I didn't necessarily create. But you do have to recognize the opportunities and seize them and be willing to go work really hard to make them worth it. And I definitely know that I have that work ethic in order to do so. And I expect that of my team as well.
So for people who didn't have those opportunities, right?
Mhm.
It didn't line up like that for them. What would be your advice to be able to create those opportunities? Or have you ever thought about that? Like how can one person coming into the industry kind of replicate what you did? Like would you recommend they reach out to other insurance companies that have a different offering than them and partner with them and participate in referral business? Or what's your recommendation?
I definitely think that no matter what type of business that you're getting into, relationships are a key factor to being able to grow. In our situation, or in my situation, it was very fortunate that the original owners had already laid the groundwork of building professional relationships with other people in our field, and that I got to benefit from that. But even as I am growing my own team and they are having to build their own block of business, we focus very heavily on relationship based marketing and
Mhm.
relationship based growth. None of us get to a point of success without a helping hand along the way. And I believe leaders help other leaders. So if you are brand new in our industry, first of all, imposter syndrome is a thing that everybody feels at any point in their career. So that is not a good reason to let that keep you from acting. There's certain pieces of things you are only going to learn by getting out there and trying. You're never going to have all your products memorized. That's not how you're going to get sales. So you do need to know your products. You can't sit there and wait until you feel like you're an expert in that, because the only way you actually become an expert is to get out there and start selling it, and recognizing that you're going to have to hear the word no a lot so that you start learning how to creatively overcome that. Also, you know more than the person who's asking you for help does. So you shouldn't discredit the fact that you did go get an insurance license. In today's world, that's not an easy thing to do. You did go get an insurance license. You have an education to a point within your field. And so you need to treat that as valuable and not second guess yourself when you are given the opportunity to help somebody with their insurance. It is okay to tell them, I am new at this and we might be learning a little bit as we go. But if I don't know the answer, I'm going to call. And then you do need to figure out which relationships you need in order to move yourself along. In this area, in South Carolina, I would say that means always being kind to your sales rep from the insurance company, because their job is to help you grow your block of business. And if you treat
Mhm.
them like they're not valuable, they don't have as good of an incentive to help you. And most of them around here, they'll go on your sales calls with you. They'll help you with that if you ask for it. And join your professional organization. Those people that I said mentored me, they're all part of NAIFA, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. And I've served in leadership in NAIFA through the years, and I still call those guys. They still help me. I'm now at the point where I'm helping mentor some of their young agents. But getting involved in your professional organization is a really good way to start building those connections. So you have somebody to call when you run into a situation that is more complex than what you're going to know. That way you're not wandering on your own. You can call them and say, this is what's going on. How would you suggest that I handle this? And that's something I've done as recently within the last year. I still call some of those guys, and now it's usually more to say, I'm just trying to validate the decision I made. Like, hey, did I handle that the way they would have handled it? And maybe I didn't, but being able to bounce those ideas, like having peer-to-peer relationships, that's something that we don't necessarily get if we're sitting by ourselves as an agency owner or a single agent within growing our own block of business. You can't stay in a silo. You got to get out and make relationships. That's probably one of the most
Mhm.
valuable things. And then for us, our agency, we get a lot of referrals from that. We have CPAs around town that send us business because they know that we know what we're talking about. Financial planners that don't care to do the health insurance or even the life insurance piece of things. Again, they bring us in because they know that we know what we're talking about, and also because we send them business when we can. So having that two-way street can be a great way to get yourself jump started. That is, again, not just calling strangers or buying a list of leads. And leads have their place, but it is easier to sell when it's a warm lead, which is usually a referral from another professional, than having a
Mhm.
direct call transfer.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree, and I think this is gold, because there are so many people in the newer generation are they're fixated on the idea of leads and the business, and like there's a gap, right?
Mhm,
Everybody who's been in the industry for 10, 20, 30 years says referrals, relationships, exactly what you just said, and that's
mhm,
been such a key for your business. A lot of the newer people come on and it's about leads, leads, leads.
mhm.
Have you I guess used leads to grow your business? at all, or has it just been referral based marketing?
When I first started and they handed me the health and Medicare block, and I again, I was fortunate because there were certain pieces of it the owner would hand to me, or the owners would hand to me, because they would get somebody call and say, "We have this new employee, they need health insurance," and they'd say, "Well, we're gonna have Aubrey call them back." So I was fortunate there that there was a little bit of them putting some business into my funnel, but we also tried some paid for leads. What I found there is the same thing as if I get a call now and somebody says they found me on Google. It's not that we won't take that seriously. We're still going to treat them like they're a serious potential piece of business. And I don't even think about people like that. I shouldn't say it like that. We still treat their insurance need just as seriously as if it's my CPA calling saying, "I've got another business owner calling you." But what I have learned is a lot of times when
Hmm.
it's somebody calling me from Google, or if it's a lead situation, is even if it's supposed to be a dedicated lead, is they're checking multiple sources of information. So you not only have the hurdle of having to figure out what the right presentation, what the right product that you would recommend them is, you also have the hurdle of building enough credibility that they want to do business with you versus maybe the three or four other people that they're calling. And there is value in that, especially if you're early in your industry, because when you do figure out how to communicate what makes you different from that next person that they've called, that is a skill that you will be able to replicate with other people. That the jargon would be when you can communicate your value proposition, but I don't like words like that because it doesn't sound like I'm a person. It sounds like I'm a robot. But when you can communicate what makes you different and why your client should do business with you, that you take with you for everything. So you've got to work those cold situations too, to start figuring out who you are as an agent and what value you bring to that relationship. And you should be able to bring them something more than, "I can help you write this insurance policy." There should be something more to them than that, because if they just wanted to get the insurance product, they could call the insurance company directly. What they're looking for is somebody who can either
Hmm.
help explain it to them, or will pick up the phone when they don't know how to do something, or can help them figure out the technology of things. Or I've got a Medicare client who's waiting on a call back. She needs help with a prescription drug appeal. She's never had to do it in her life. She knows that I'm going to call her back and I'm going to help her with that paperwork. So you should be able to communicate what you
Wow.
can give that client that isn't just, "I can help you get that coverage." Because they can get that anywhere. They can get that from a bot on the internet today. The AI is out there and it will sell them the product. They want a person, they want a relationship. And so you need to get real confident in yourself as a person and the relationship and what it is you bring to them. If it's, "I'm always going to text you back within an hour," that's fine. That's not Aubrey's value proposition. She actually shuts her phone off at 6 o'clock at night. You can reach me the
Well,
next morning,
good
but
for
I
you.
have earned the right to do that after 20 years in the industry. There was a time when I took calls all during the night, and my spouse appreciates that I don't. So yes, for the younger person, yes, you do have to go knock on doors. You do have to do the calls. You do have to show up to the networking event, even when it's uncomfortable and you don't know anybody in the room. But that's because it stretches you and teaches you who you are and what type of agent you're going to be. And that those first 3 to 5 years in South Carolina, we renew every 2 years. And we see that more than 50% of people who get their license do not renew it within 2 years. So if you can make it to year 5, you are way ahead of the game. But it requires growing that thick skin and having that resilient attitude.
Absolutely. I think this is gold. I'm loving everything. And my personal takeaway here is just a transition of mindset from buying leads and the transaction based, right? If I'm gonna put $2,000 towards leads, $1,000 can also buy a crap ton of donuts that I can go and give donuts to another insurance agency that has a a different product offering. That
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think of how you've done it, and like you said, those
Sure.
relationships and the networking and
Mhm.
really building that so that I get a warm lead in. I think that
Yes. And I mean,
That's
in our
amazing.
area, $2,000 will buy you 2 years of BNI membership and a local chamber membership. And if you can't go get yourself a start by showing up and saying, how can I help? Can I volunteer? Who can I show up and help? Oh, that person's moving their office. Let me go be of value to them and help them. And building those starts, even if it turns out that insurance isn't the right fit for you, you've laid a really good groundwork so that when you figure out what the right fit for you is, you have a network of people that know, like, and trust you. And that phrase is known universally for a reason.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I want to go back to the 5 year mark, right? Statistics in the industry show that I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
it's 92% of agents will be out of the insurance game within the first 3 years. You mentioned 50% at least by year two are not renewing. Do you have any like concrete advice, just Aubrey's playbook as far as what to do to make it past the first 2, 3, 5 years? Because it seems like, in those first years, it's learning how the industry works. It's maybe you get a couple chargebacks
Hmm.
and you think that's dumb, or maybe something happens with an upline or trying to work AEP without money. Those things are difficult.
Yeah.
What did you do, or what advice do you have specifically for how a new agent can make it to 5 years?
Sure. Well, some of it may not be the popular answer, but I think it is like growing any other
We don't want
business.
the popular, we want the straight answers.
Right. So a lot of agents that I meet in South Carolina that are fresh out of college that have just gotten their license, they've been recruited by a life insurance company. There's a couple of them, we won't name names because we're professionals, but they've been recruited and they've been sold a lot of not necessarily false dreams because you can definitely make that type of income, but they've been misled as to what the timetables of those income
Hmm.
responses are. So I think that there's not much, I don't think that there's shame in going, I am going to work this part time until I can grow it into a full-time gig. The odds of you going and landing that huge life insurance sale as one of your first 5 sales where you can pay your whole year's salary, that's just slim. Like, if I get one of those types of sales every couple years, I'm doing really well because those take a lot of time and nurturing to build those types of sales. If you don't have the benefit of, having parents or spouse or somebody else providing your salary until you can grow that block, you need to recognize that you may need a second income source. And that is just like any other business owner who is starting out. They don't usually have the capital to do it all right from the get go. That's probably why most businesses fail within the first 5 years, is because they try to put too many eggs in one basket. But then when it comes to actually growing your clientele, your block of business, recognize that I've already said this, you're going to hear the word no a lot, and that's okay. No is usually also a no, not right now, or a no, but I can introduce you to this friend who might need your benefit, might need what you're offering. Second, you're going to have to do a lot of work with single people. And I don't mean as individuals that aren't married. Going and getting a company to sign on with you right off the bat, again, that takes time and trust and relationship building. So recognize that it's okay to do a lot of volume and small level sales, and those things add up over the course of time. Pick your pennies up off the street. Don't step over them looking for dollar bills. Take what you have available to you, but also recognize not every person is your client. If you have provided them an appropriate solution, what is right for them, not what's right for you and your bank account, and they are not getting it, continue to be a resource to them, but continue to look for new clients. You can't put it all in one sale. You can't put it all in 2 or 3 sales. You do need to constantly be keeping your sales funnel full, which is why most sales coaches are going to tell you you have to pick up the phone. You have to make the calls. You have to be willing to hear the word no. The other thing is recognizing that if you're so busy focusing on the commission that's coming to you, then you're not focusing on your client's need. And anybody who is in sales that is successful recognizes it doesn't matter what they're selling. It's helping somebody identify a problem and helping them find a solution to the problem. That's all that insurance is. When somebody comes to me and they are turning 65 and they don't know which way to turn, they're just looking for guidance. They want to understand how Medicare works. They want to understand what the products are. They want to know that they can continue to see their doctors, or they're not going to have to go try out this generic medication when they're on this brand name and they tried that generic 3 years ago and had a bad reaction. And so they're looking for education. If they don't wind up buying a product from me, that's okay, as long as I did the right thing by them, because the money does take care of itself eventually. If you do the right thing by the client, you focus on handling yourself with dignity and continuing to reach out to people in a way that is appropriate to their situation. But also, it's okay if you're still one of my team members. She just graduated college. She has her insurance license. She wants to do this full time. She's working accounting 4 hours a week because that's what her college degree is in. 4 hours in the afternoons while she's working on growing her book, because she still has bills to pay too. And clients can smell desperation. Having something to help you, a side gig or whatever, that's fine. Most of them will respect that because they respect that, you're doing the hustle while you're also being the responsible adult that you need to be. They see us as people just like they are. It's not a transaction. We're two
Mhm.
people. We're trying to see if we want to do business together. But you
Mhm.
got to be patient and you got to be willing to hear the word
Right.
no and not get discouraged.
So what I'm hearing is you need to be resilient with some tough skin. You got to be willing to work hard. You got to be
Mhm,
willing to really to succeed, like you said, the part-time gig. Most people,
mhm,
I feel like, have a hard time doing that because it's like, hey, I'm doing this full-time thing and I don't want to put in the extra hour or two or three after work. I just want to make the jump. And when they make the jump, it's really tough to do. And so they have to be willing to put in some of the extra. And what I'm also hearing is that the right person to succeed in insurance has to have a lot of empathy and care for people and not just be in it for the money. Because
mhm.
from what I'm hearing, that money is short-lived. People smell the commission, and really when you do what's right for people, those relationships will carry you through and in the long run help you build a successful business. Is that right?
Sure. And I don't want to diminish. There are fantastic income opportunities in the insurance world. But if that's the only reason that you're in this, that's going to make it difficult, because if you don't care about the people that you're working with, they feel that. They really do. And I mean,
Hmm.
you wouldn't want to do business with somebody who's only looking at you for what the dollar signs are, or I hope not. If that's the case, there again, you can go online, you can go directly to the insurance company and you can get it. You don't need a broker in between you and the insurance company to do that sort of thing. So you definitely do need to have the empathy to try to sit down with the individual who's purchasing. And I don't care if it's doing what I do, where we do a lot of health and Medicare, but we also do life insurance. Because my agency specialized in long term care insurance when it opened up, I have a lot of long-term care clients that are now in their 80s. There's no commission coming off their policies, or if it is, it's very nominal. But they're at one of their most vulnerable points of life, because when they need that long-term care policy to help them pay for assisted living, they need somebody who's going to sit down and take them through that process. That generates business for me in the long run, because they say, call Aubrey. She cares about what she's doing and she's going to pick up the phone a few years down the road. And that's why I have three other
Wow.
team members now too, is not because it's about me, but I want my clients to know that if something happens to me, there is somebody still here at Lifetime that will take care of that.
So I've got a couple more questions here for you, Aubrey. One is, I mean, you're just a phenomenal example of what can be done. I think as a female, we talked before the podcast started about your black belt in Japanese and Hawaiian jiu-jitsu and judo, just how you're active, how you're in a male-dominated industry. How does that black belt translate to insurance? And I guess in the same question, what advice do you have for possibly other young women or women in general who are looking to get involved with insurance?
Sure. We'll tackle the martial arts question first. One of the things that I have learned over the course of my martial arts training, and I started that after insurance. I started that at age 30, and now I'm almost 15 years into that. And I have no problem saying my age either. For those of y'all that are doing the math over there, I'll be 45 next year. I started the day after my 25th industry in insurance. So next year will be 20 years for me. But one of the things that that steady discipline has taught me is one, it has given me a tremendous amount of confidence to know that I can manage a situation, especially as a female who is sometimes on the road. And so that has given me the confidence to be able to go to a rural part of South Carolina and not have to worry about my safety. Because when I started at 24, 25 years old, my bosses, rightly so, they wouldn't let me even go sit down with somebody in their home. And that was a safety thing for them. They were like, it's just not appropriate. We don't ever want to put you in a position where something could happen. So, and I hate that we have to think about that in this world, but this is the world we live in. So I can go out and I can travel and I can do the job when I need to be out of my office and not have to worry about whether or not I'm on the road after dark. That's one thing. But second, it has given me the confidence to be able to command a room when I need to. And that maybe has helped in that male dominated industry thing. I mentioned earlier that I got involved early in NAIFA in my professional organization. I'm also a member of NABIB, which is National Association of Benefit Insurance Professionals, the alphabet soup. I've served in leadership in that room. So when I walk into that room, in that NAIFA room, if I say, hey, I need to say something, and not to pick on the dudes, but it is a room full of 60 something plus year old dudes. Sometimes there used to be a propensity to kind of not to diminish my voice. The martial arts has given me the confidence that when I not raise my voice like yell, but when I raise my voice, when I choose to speak, I know that I'm saying it with the confidence and the thoughtfulness that they will listen to me. I've also just point blank told them when I served my second term as president of my local association, I wound up looking at them all and saying, and it was a situation where we had to ask the current president to step down. He was doing his best, but he was facing health challenges. Both of his parents were moving into assisted living. He wasn't able to give to our organization what we needed him to do. So I resumed it as the past president. And I just looked all around the room and I said, this won't go down the way it did last time, where I'm doing all the work because you guys aren't being held accountable. If I ask you to do something and you commit to it, you're going to do it. And I think that commended that respect of those older people. And these are people who have mentored me within my industry, that now they know if I step up for a position, I've thoughtfully thought about whether or not I can give to that position, whether or not I can do that job. And I'm not sure that I would have grown into that confidence as early in my career as I did if not for the martial arts training. Now, coming around to advice for young ladies in our industry. And while this is for the young ladies, this is a learning lesson for our young men too. Women, at least women in the South, were raised and socialized to be social creatures on those subtle cues. So we can see things and hear things that they really can't most of the time here. I know I'm using general terms, but that is something that you need to celebrate and go, this is something I can do that they'd have to actively learn to do. And they can do it and they can learn to do it. My spouse has sisters, so they are better at doing it than necessarily we would have thought. So we should use that to our advantage. I have said over and over again, part of my business has grown because of relationships. I think I got a leg up because I was born female, because I am good at relationships because I was born female. Not that guys are not, but we also can relate to the wives and the moms in the household. And at the end of the day, something like 70% of financial decisions in a household get made by the woman. So if you can have a conversation with that woman that your male counterpart cannot have, there is no reason to doubt yourself because you are in a male dominated industry, because you have that superpower. And I preach at some of the men in my NAIFA group that, because they ask, how can we get younger women in our industry more involved? But they don't usually say younger women. They say, how do we get those girls? Y'all got to treat us like we're equals. It's like, well, one of the things is stop calling them those young girls. say, how can I get that woman to be involved in leadership? Because you don't tell the younger guys in our industry, boys, do you? So that shift there, I've had to talk to them, and that they need to have the wives and the moms and family relate. Like if you're selling life insurance to a husband, she should be part of that conversation. And you should hear what keeps her up at night because she's probably the one who writes the check for the premium anyway. So she needs to know who you are. And unfortunately, that's something I had to learn the hard way. I had a client buy a life insurance policy, and unfortunately he passed away within a year of buying it. And I had never met his wife. And when we were trying to get that life insurance claim done because he passed away so suddenly, so close to the policy, they did a full investigation. And I didn't have a relationship with her. Now, we did get the claim paid, but she wound up moving not only her health insurance, but her and all of their adult children's life insurance away from my agency. And it was my fault. I didn't have a relationship with her ahead of time. So when I was saying, this is normal, it's part of the process, I know it's frustrating, she didn't understand. She understood it, but like she didn't feel like I had the empathy for her that I should have. And that's me trying to relate to another woman. So we should all learn from that. Like every decision maker within a household or within a business should be part of the conversation in some aspect. If they don't know who you are as your life insurance agent, you're not doing your job well enough. Even if it's just a simple, I'd love to buy you and your wife coffee sometimes so that even if you're the one who makes all the decisions, if something should ever happen, she knows who I am. She knows who to call. And at this point, I'm doing that with the adult children and my long-term care clients too, because oftentimes it's not the client, it's the adult child of my long-term care clients that are making the decisions on where mom needs to move into.
Yeah, I think of My Big Fat Greek Wedding when you talk about the woman
Mhm,
being a big decision maker, where she says,
mhm.
man may be the head, but the woman is the neck, and she can turn the head any way she wants.
Yeah. We say
And
that in jujitsu
I
too, but
couldn't
it's
agree
more
more.
from a martial standpoint. If I can make your head turn, I
Right,
can make your body turn, but
right.
that's a martial arts thing. Yeah. Another thing I would say to young ladies or to just somebody who's new in the industry, but I am as I have had I have three new agents on my team right now, and I've had a few others through the years. Sometimes we have a tendency to go ahead and play out the scenario in our head and put that seed of doubt in our own head and not ask for the sale. I know one of my team members, we've done a lot of work on that. It is not your job to write the client's decision for them. You do the education of helping them understand the products, and you present the products, and you let them make the decision for it is not your job to put the word yes or no. And usually we're putting the word no. It is not your job to put the word no in their mouth. You are not allowed to decide how the story goes for the client. Your job is to be professional and show them a solution to their problem, or show them more than one, and explain the benefits or downfalls of going down either path and let them decide. But because you're afraid that they're going to say no is not a good reason not to ask for the sale. And I don't really think that's a female thing, but I have noticed, excuse me, it is a little more difficult for my female agents than my male agents to ask for the sale. And I think that's a little bit the difference in the way we were raised and socialized. Men are raised, generally speaking, like they're raised in more competitive sports. They're raised to be more confident. Women are raised to do feelings. And again, I'm being very general with that. That's not the case across the board, but
Sure.
it can be a stumbling block for young women, not just in insurance, but in any sales position. And it's one I've had to overcome too. And
I would
it
say
is better
also
if you,
on that vein, I would say it it may be a stumbling block, or it's kind of difficult for them to ask for the
Mhm,
sale. But once a woman learns how to ask for the sale,
mhm,
I think women have a very big advantage over men when it comes to asking for the sale. A man, when they ask, or it can come across kind of aggressive, especially when you're dealing with
yes,
objections, right? And it can turn people off. A woman,
mhm,
like you're mentioning, by nature, a lot of times has a softer approach. And so for that woman asking for the sale and then figuring out the objective, it's almost like they slide under the
mhm,
radar. And it doesn't
mhm,
bring up a lot of people's defenses. So when you can learn how to ask the
mhm,
question, women are absolute
mhm.
killers. My wife showed me that in sales, and like
Yeah, yeah,
she's a way better closer
yeah.
than
It's
I am.
just What I have found, at least from my female agents, is they're afraid to ask for the sales, so they won't set that appointment. And I'm like, well, if you don't set that appointment, it is definitely going to be a no. At least give yourself the opportunity to get the sale done, because the longer the sales process goes on, with a caveat now, when we're talking about very complex, like business life insurance solutions, you need the appropriate time for everybody who's involved to consider the options. But when we're talking about something that's straightforward, like this person is losing their health insurance coverage because they've changed jobs and they need new coverage by this date. The longer you let that linger, the more likely it is to turn into a no. Now, you don't want to do it right off the bat, but if you've led them to the appropriate solution, then I don't even think it's asking for a sale for me to say, okay, so the next step is for us to handle the enrollment form. Do we want to put that on the books? Do we want to handle that right now? That's not even really, in my opinion, asking for a sale. That's just presenting the next logical step. But if you can't pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, you've had a couple days to look over these things. Do you have questions for me? Otherwise, the next logical step is for us to do the enrollment. And if they need to wait and see, then it's going, okay, so what is it that's making you hesitate? Then you start learning how to overcome those objectives. It doesn't have to be an aggressive thing. And for some reason, my male clients, maybe because my male agent, maybe because he's also in the military, so he thinks very structured, like, okay, this is the next step. I see him communicate that with his clients, like take a couple days to think about it, but the next step would be we're gonna do that enrollment. He doesn't have that hesitation that one of my
Mhm. Yeah.
Another thing I would
Yeah.
say to anybody
Well,
is
this,
as soon as it becomes appropriate for your budget, and this could be at any point in your career, as soon as it becomes appropriate for your budget, invest some time and money in either sales training or business coaching or communication skills. We all have things we need to learn. And we're leaders to our clients and we're leaders to our team. If your aspirations is to lead a team of agents, and we're leaders within our communities and we're leaders within our families and our churches, et cetera, et cetera. And
mhm.
we can only lead at the highest level of our personal development. So if you want to have a really long career in anything related to sales and people leadership, you need to be developing your leadership skills.
Amen. Amen. Well said. This was gold, Aubrey. I think the specifics of how you've broken down everything on the podcast, new agents struggling, giving them hope to get past those 5 years, so much advice for young women, so much inspiration as far as taking your career so far and how you've been prepared and disciplined to do it. I think it's all amazing. And I'm super thankful that you agreed to come on the podcast. So thank you for your time.
Britton, thank you so much for inviting
And
me to share our story. If we can be of a resource to you, let us know.
absolutely. Will do. Will do. And to all the listeners out there, if you found value in this podcast, then do us a favor, leave us a review, like it, share it, DM it to people who need to hear it. That's how we get out there. That's how we spread the voice. That's how we can get more young people and young women involved. So appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next episode. This has been the Insurance Playbook Podcast sponsored by Spark AI Partners.